Hello everybody, it is officially 2020 and today we're going to talk about how to help you get the poker tournament results that you deserve, and it's going down. Hello everybody, my name is Rob Gardner, aka The Poker Pastor. I stream on Twitch 3 days a week, and here on this channel we talk about ways to get better at life on and off the poker felt. And if you get any value from this, hit the like button and throw a comment below the video so we can get some feedback from you, and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can get updates whenever we post new videos. Now today I want to talk about poker tournament strategy and getting you the results you deserve. We all are heading into 2020 with new goals and new excitement around the game of poker. The game is growing, field sizes are growing, live poker is growing, online tournament poker is growing. Everything is on the way up and we all want to be a part of it. Now, the first topic I want to talk about is game selection. Now, some of you might not even have a plan for game selection or even know what I'm talking about when I talk about game selection, but game selection is the strategy of picking the right tournaments for you to play. Now, there's two key mistakes that I see from people when they approach game selection and they decide what to play. The first is that people just get really excited and they want to chase the big guarantees. I mean, it is exciting to play a $20 tournament online that pays $10,000 to first. And those tournaments certainly do have their place. But the problem with playing large field tournaments, especially if it is a huge part of your game selection offering, is that you put yourself in a position where you are going to be successful a very, very tiny percentage of the time. Now, over the last 14, 15 years, I have yet to have a losing month in poker. And every time I tell people that, I get a funny eye and I get a lot of sarcasm and I get a lot of disbelief. But there's a reason why I've been able to have that consistent of success in overcoming variance. And it's that I'm very passionate about playing smaller fields. My general rule of thumb is I like to play 80 to 90% of my tournaments in field sizes of 200 or less. Let me throw these numbers at you. Let's pretend that you're a 50% ROI player and you're gonna win a tournament 50% more often than everybody else in the field, or than the standard distribution. So if a normal player, if everything was all considered equal, would win 1 in 100 times in a 100-person field, you would win 1.5 in 100 times, right? You'd have that little 50% increase. If you're able to play 100 games a week, if you're like a full-time grinder, or maybe you're able to play 100 games a month as a part-time grinder, knowing that 78% of the time you are going to book that win, which is such a key part of your ROI, it's such a key part of realizing your profit potential, it's a pretty safe place to be because you know month over month or week over week, 4 out of 5 times you're going to get there. And of course, there's going to be some weeks you don't. There's going to be some weeks you get there twice. There is still some variance involved, but that is a spot where generally speaking, the variance is going to be on your side. Now let's take that field size up from 100 people to 1,000 people. Let's say you're playing 1,000-person tournaments. Now, there's only a 14% chance every 100 games that you're going to get that win. That is a dramatic decrease. You're going from 4 out of 5 times to 1 out of 7. If you're playing really big fields because you just love the excitement of playing for a big prize and you're playing 10,000 person fields, that goes down to 1.5%. Now again, I'm not saying don't ever play large fields. I think it should be 10 to 20% of your kind of tournament selection resume. We should take shots. At some point, we are going to sun run, and you do want an opportunity to take advantage of that in a bigger field. But if that takes up a big portion of the tournaments you're playing, you're going to have a hard time overcoming variance. And let's be honest, winning is important. It helps keep your confidence level at a place where you're going to continue playing optimally and not play scared. Now, the second mistake that people make is they play games that they can't beat. It is so important to find the games that you can beat and beat them and beat them and beat them. Most of you who follow sports know what it's like to watch a team who is pounding the other team. They're running the ball up the middle in football over and over again, and they're just dominating, and then they go away from it. It's almost like they feel like they're cheating, doing the same thing over and over again and having success. And so then they start to pass the ball, and then things go wrong, and then the game falls apart, and you're sitting there screaming at your television, why did you stop running the ball when you were getting 6, 7, 8 yards of carry? We know what that feels like, and yet we do the same thing in poker sometimes. We find a game that we can beat and we can make profit at, and we stop playing it because it gets boring or it gets repetitive, or we don't feel like we're impressing enough people, or we're not building a nice enough image and we want to move up in stakes too fast. Find that game you can beat and obliterate it. The name of the game is to make money, and if you're just playing purely for entertainment, then sure, have fun, set a budget and go, but you're going to have more fun if you can make money and you can take this hobby and turn it into something that at the very least doesn't put a hole in your pocketbook, but at the most could be something that can generate some supplemental income for you. So the number 2 thing you need to do in 2020 is conquer your fears. Now, I'm not going to surprise you when I say that fear is a bad thing in poker, and it can lead to a lot of problems as you start to play scared and you start to play nervous and you start to make bad decisions. But let's take a step back from that and talk about how we get in that situation in the first place. Now, I can't help you with the bad experiences. They're going to come in poker. If you don't like bad experiences, then poker might not be the game for you, because trust me, you're going to see it all if you play for long enough. You're going to have the runner, 2-outer, 1-outer. You're going to have the bad beats where the guy made the worst call in the world in a spot where he easily should have folded, and then he gets rewarded and gets there. Those things are going to happen. So I can't prevent those from happening, but what you can do is you can start to get more and more accustomed to it. And one of the ways to get more accustomed to it is to take some of the emotion out of it. This kind of piggybacks a little bit on the game selection thing. You may have the money to play a bigger buy-in, and you may have the capabilities and talents to play a bigger buy-in, but if the emotional swings of getting to a final table of a tournament that say is $1,500 to first, and taking a bad beat and going out 8th when you would have the chip lead is going to negatively impact you for the next 2 weeks, and it's going to make you play scared, and it's going to make you start making bad plays, maybe you shouldn't play those tournaments. Keep yourself in a place where you can keep yourself emotionally centered and focused even when things go wrong. Now, the other side of the fear coin is learning how to play great poker. A lot of great poker means that we have to be aggressive. We have to be willing to double barrel, bet on the flop and bet on the turn, or even sometimes triple barrel, bet flop, turn, and river, even in situations where we don't have a hand. And flip side, sometimes we have to call down light against aggressive players who are running over the table and are betting every street. And again, it's the same concept. We have a hard time with some of those situations. We have a hard time with check raise bluffs. We have a hard time with calling down to the river. The river is one of those places that most players that I look at their databases have one of the worst calling percentages, because the pie gets really big, there's a lot at stake, and they feel like, oh man, he's got it, and they fold. But it comes back to, are you in a position where you can make those light calls? And one of the things that can help you get better at this is playing in an environment where the fear is gone. I highly, highly recommend having the willingness to drop down in stakes to a place where, again, the stakes are low for you emotionally, and you can experiment with calling a guy all the way down to the river with ace high, where you can experiment with triple barrel bluffing all the way to the river when you don't have a hand, and you can start to desensitize yourself to these situations so that when they come up in regular games, it doesn't feel like this tense. You feel the electricity shooting through your veins and you're panicking and sweating and shaking because you've never been in this situation before, and transform it into a situation where you've done this 100, 150, 200 times. You're comfortable with the situation, and now you're able to apply it at the stakes that you actually play at. Not enough players are willing to jump to a place, a playground, a little sandbox where they can safely try these types of concepts and get good at them and get comfortable at them, and then move back to the stakes they play at. If you're willing to do those sorts of things, and yes, it can be humbling, and yes, it can be annoying, and yes, I always hear how playing at the micro stakes is such a tilting experience because you're playing against these bad players who don't play the right way. But doing that, humbling yourself, getting yourself in that spot will help you overcome that fear and help you get the experience you need to have that foundation, so that it's an automatic decision, it's a calm decision, it's a well thought out decision, it's a decision as a foundation. And now you start to remove the fear from the game. And once a player starts to remove the fear from the game, they start to get incredibly dangerous, because now it's not so much about how good the opponent is across the table from you. It's about sticking to your game plan, and you have that framework in place. So you start to get to a place where you don't see many situations that you haven't seen before. Now, this piggybacks on point number 3, and this is a big one I'm really passionate about. Train for your situation. Now I want you to think about a bell curve, and most of you probably know what a bell curve is, but just in case you don't, there's a bell curve is like a chart that literally looks like a bell. It's really high at the top and then it tapers off on each side. And what the bell curve represents is basically talent level, where over here on this side, you have a very small percentage of people that are the worst at the game there are. And then it goes up, and as you get into the middle percentiles, a large percentage of the population is here in the middle. And then you come back down to the top of the bell curve, and a very, very, very small percentage of people are really, really good. And the farther you go up, the tinier the percentage gets until you get to literally the best person in the world. And that's what the bell chart exactly is. But if I was to ask you what percentage of players on the bell chart were winning players, what would you say? The truth is, it depends a little bit on live versus online versus the site versus the talent pool and everything else. But let's just say between 90 and 95% of players are break even or losing players, right? And so they represent a massive percentage of the bell curve. But one of the mistakes I see from poker players again and again and again is 95% of the player pool is a losing player, 5% is the winning player, yet so many poker players spend 95% of their time studying how to beat the 5% winning players, and they don't spend enough time learning how to beat losing players. Now, I will fully acquiesce that as you get deeper in tournaments, more better players rise to the top. When you get to final tables, there are going to tend to be more better players than losing players, and there certainly is value to learning how to beat winning players and learning how to play poker against winning players, learning concepts like balancing your ranges and ICM and all that stuff. But with that being said, there shouldn't be such a disparity between the amount of time we study how to beat bad players and the time we study how to beat good players. Have you ever heard somebody say, I don't want to play this $2 tournament because I can't beat these micro donks who don't play right? Well, think about it. Those micro donks don't just play at the $2 level. They play at the $5 level, the $10 level, the $20 level. And yes, some of them will tend to play a tighter or safer style when they move up in buy-ins. But the bottom line is, if a large percentage of the player pool plays with a certain style, we have to learn how to beat that style and not just say, oh, it's not fair, they don't play a good style, they don't play poker right, I don't want to learn how to beat it. We need to put more time and energy into that. So I'm sure you've heard about GTO. GTO is all the rage. And listen, I'm going to tell you that there is a lot of value to GTO. However, if you're playing $5 tournaments, GTO is completely useless to you. Now, sure, if you're moving up in stakes and you're starting to get to the mid to high stakes, as you start to move in your poker career, there will be a point where things like GTO will have value, but you're probably not even watching this video if you're playing at this level. You've probably already shut it off at this point because most of these concepts we're talking about, you already know. Don't get all excited about the latest, newest, most exciting rage, thinking that it's going to transform your life, because that rage may be a rage because the top players are talking about it. And what are the top players going to talk about? They're going to talk about the strategies that benefit them. You're not in the same place they are yet, or at least most of you in this video won't be at the same place they are yet. So don't try to be them. I know it's exciting, they're role models, they're a goal you want to get to, and you can certainly make notes of that. But right now, think about the place you're in. What is the buy-in stakes you're at? And I would even encourage you, when it comes to coaching, find someone that's had success where you're at. Don't get some guy who's crushing high rollers on a weekly basis to teach you poker, because you're not playing high rollers on a weekly basis. You want somebody that is winning at the stakes you're at. And if you're willing to get a coach that's winning at the stakes you're at, a lot of times it's going to save you money because you're not going to be paying a really high rate for some really premium information. Listen, the coaches at the high stakes are going to be there 6 months, a year, 3 years, 2 years from now. When you get there, there's no reason to rush into that and just try and get the most expensive or the fanciest package possible. Find the package that's going to help you beat the stakes you're at. Number 4 is a real simple one, but it's a really important one. Take advantage of free content. Now listen, back pre-Black Friday, when poker training was starting to get all the rage, you had poker coaches that were charging $200 an hour. You had poker video sites like Card Runners that were like $99 a month. Poker content was not very accessible. But this is 2020. There is literally free poker content everywhere. You're watching some right now where we talk. Almost all of the training sites are putting out free videos. And I'm not just talking about a free 10-minute video about what they offer. They're putting out hand history reviews. They're putting out review sessions. They're putting out concepts that they're teaching. There is free content everywhere. There is literally no excuse for you to not educate yourself in poker in 2020 other than you just don't want to. So spend some extra time in YouTube, spend some extra time in Twitter. Follow some of these people who do teach poker, who do sell packages, who on a monthly basis are willing to put a free video of 30 to 45 minutes out there and take advantage of it. You don't have to spend a fortune to learn concepts and start to improve your game. But this is, again, an area that so many people are not willing to take advantage of because they don't want to spend a little bit of time digging for some really great info. And trust me, there is some really great info out there. And for a couple examples, check the description below. I've put some links to some great YouTubers that you can follow for some free video content to help you improve your game. And this brings me to the last change that you want to make, and it literally is embracing change. Listen, poker is going to continue to evolve over the years, and we have to be willing to evolve with it. What works this year might not work next year. What works next year might not work the year after that. And especially even at the site-by-site level, or even different tournament series, when I've traveled the circuit and played at different stops, different cities, you're going to run into different styles. You're going to run into different types of play. You're going to have to be willing to change and adjust your game. And it just continues to be a pattern that players that are willing to embrace change are the ones that benefit and succeed the most and overcome the most, because whenever things change, they can quickly adapt and adjust. I run into so many poker players who absolutely refuse to change their style of play. They want to raise to a certain size. They want to limp. They want to never 3-bet, or they want to play hands out of position. And the bottom line is, while I am a firm believer that there is nothing in poker that is bad 100% of the time, there are definitely things that are bad 95, 96, 98, 99% of the time. And on the flip side, I also run into people who only want to do the cookie cutter things, and they're not willing to take advantage of really, really bad players because they don't want to break a rule. And so I want you to train your mind to be an empty canvas, to understand that as you pursue your poker career, whether it's as a hobby or as a professional, that you need to be constantly willing to change, that you need to be open-minded to concepts that can make your game different. Just because a coach told you that a certain way of doing things is bad doesn't mean it's going to be bad forever. So many of the exploitative styles that work in poker today are working because people are overcompensating in bad ways. In other words, aggression, which has been a popular tool for a long time, has worked so well because a large percentage of that bell curve folds too much. But if a large percentage of that bell curve was starting to call too much, if the poker world started to shift and everybody wanted to call all 3 streets and never ever fold, aggression would be absolutely terrible. And you never know when that day could come. So just don't get yourself stuck in a mindset where this is how I play, this is how I was taught, this is what I learned, I'm not going to be willing to change, because the game will pass you by. So those are my 5 areas that I want to encourage you to work on to get the poker results you want in 2020. If you have any more questions about this, please join our Discord. The link is down in the description. You can hit me up there. You can also hit me up on Twitter, or you can hit me up in the comments of the video. I'd love to hear from you what you think about these concepts, how they are applying to your game. And if any of these concepts help, please come back and let us know so we know that it had a really cool impact on you. We love hearing your stories of success. Your stories of success give us excitement and help us feel successful as well. That's it for me, Poker Pastor, signing off and encouraging you to dream big and be bigger.
I'm gonna rip this in. Ooh. Queen ball. Let's go. First win of 2020, baby. In the books. The bear is off our back. Finally, it is official, guys. What a great way to end our test streams. All right.